For 8 months, the boy was dying. Every doctor said the same thing. Hours left. Maybe days. His father spent millions, built a hospital wing inside his own mansion, begged specialists to look again. They all whispered, "There's nothing we can do." Then a maid everyone hated noticed something no one else did, and what she uncovered about those doctors will leave you speechless. Jonathan Hale was a billionaire. Pharmaceutical empire, penthouse offices, more power than most people touch in 10 lifetimes. But his son Evan was dying. 7 years old, slowly fading. Jonathan tried everything. Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, specialists flown in from Berlin. Doctors who charged 6 figures just to walk through the door. They ran blood panels, genetic tests, experimental treatments. All of them said the same thing. Incurable. Irreversible. Say your goodbyes. But Jonathan couldn't say goodbye because Evan was all he had left. His wife died the night that boy collapsed for the first time. Coincidence? They called it. Stress-induced cardiac arrest while watching her son seize on the bedroom floor. So Jonathan kept searching, kept spending, kept begging God for a miracle. What he didn't know. The answer wasn't coming from a hospital. It was coming from the woman everyone in his house wanted fired. The woman they called that charity case. The woman he barely looked at when she cleaned his floors. Naomi was a maid. 24. No degree, no medical training, just a woman trying to keep her younger siblings off the streets after their parents died. But she noticed something about Evan that every specialist had ignored. Something in the pattern of his pain. Something that didn't make sense. And one night, while Jonathan was being pulled away on an emergency, she made a decision that would either save that boy's life or destroy her own. What happened next? Before we dive deep into this jaw-dropping story, quick pause. Drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. I love seeing our global Curious Chronicles family light up the map. Globe showing Europe, Africa. If you're already hooked and craving more inspiring and captivating stories that poke curiosity like this one, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We drop beautiful, heart-pounding stories every week that you seriously don't want to miss, so let's dive right into it. The Hale estate rose like a monument to wealth on the hills overlooking the city. From the outside, it looked like power-made concrete. Glass walls that reflected the sky, marble columns imported from Italy, gates that opened to a driveway longer than most city blocks. But inside, silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that feels like rest. This silence was suffocating, dense, like something was rotting beneath the polished floors and no one dared to name it. The staff moved through the hallways like ghosts. Soft footsteps. Whispered instructions. They'd learned quickly. Mr. Hale didn't tolerate noise. No music played in that house. No television. No children's laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Just the hum of medical equipment and the mechanical beep of monitors tracking a dying child's heartbeat. And somewhere in that silence, a father was drowning. Jonathan Hale sat in his study most nights, staring at the photograph on his desk. There she was, Elena, his wife. Her smile frozen in time, her eyes still bright, still alive. Next to her, a younger version of himself, clean-shaven, confident. And between them, Evan. 3 years old in that photo. Before the sickness started. Before Jonathan understood that all his money couldn't buy what his son needed most. Elena died 5 years ago. It was sudden, a heart attack triggered by the stress of Evan's first seizure. The doctors said it was a terrible coincidence. Jonathan knew better. His wife died of fear. Fear that their boy was slipping away and there was nothing she could do to stop it. He never forgave himself. If he'd been faster. If he demanded better care that night. If he'd paid more attention to Elena's warnings about the new doctor's aggressive treatment plan, maybe she'd still be here. Maybe Evan would be different. The guilt lived in his chest like a weight he couldn't lift. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He spent money. Millions of dollars. The best specialists on the planet. Private flights to experimental clinics in Switzerland, Japan, Israel. Hotels that cost more per night than most people earned in a year. Every doctor said the same thing: your son's condition is degenerative, genetic, terminal. There's nothing we can do. You need to prepare yourself. Prepare himself? How could he prepare to bury his son? How could he accept that Evan would die without ever knowing his father tried everything, to save him? So Jonathan kept searching, kept writing checks, kept hoping that somewhere out there, someone had the answer. He didn't realize the answer wasn't coming from a doctor in a white coat with credentials on the wall. It was coming from someone he'd never think to trust. Someone who was about to walk into his life with nothing but a desperate need to survive, and eyes sharp enough to see what everyone else had missed. Her name was Naomi Turner, and she was about to change everything. Naomi arrived on a cold Monday morning in February. The sky was the color of concrete, the kind of gray that makes the world feel smaller, heavier. She stood at the service entrance of the Hale estate, gripping her bag with both hands, trying to steady the trembling in her fingers. This was it. Her last chance. Back in the South Bronx, her 16-year-old brother Marcus was supposed to be in school. Instead, he was hanging out with guys who carried guns and sold pills. Her 12-year-old sister Janae cried herself to sleep most nights, asking when Naomi was coming home, asking why their parents had to die. The bills were stacked on Naomi's kitchen table like a tower of guilt she couldn't stop from growing. Rent 3 months overdue. Electricity shut off twice already. Food stamps running dry. The Hale estate job paid $18 an hour, barely enough to survive on in the city, but with overtime and the live-in option, it was her lifeline. If she could just keep her head down, stay invisible, stay out of trouble, she could save her family. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, opened the service door with a look that said everything Naomi needed to know. She was already being judged. "You're late," Mrs. Chen said, though Naomi had arrived 5 minutes early. "I'm sorry. The train." Mr. Hale doesn't accept excuses. You'll work the overnight shifts. You'll clean the East Wing, the kitchens, and the boys' medical suite. You will not speak to Mr. Hale unless spoken to. You will not ask questions. You will not, Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed, touch anything in the boys' room except what needs cleaning. Do you understand? Naomi nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Good. Because the last girl who overstepped was fired in less than a week. Mr. Hale has no patience for incompetence. Naomi followed Mrs. Chen through the back corridors of the mansion. The floors were so clean they reflected the overhead lights like mirrors. The walls were lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Naomi's entire childhood home. Everything smelled like lemon polish and wealth. But as they approached the East Wing, Evan's wing, the smell changed. Antiseptic. Sterile. Clinical. Like a hospital had been grafted onto a palace. Mrs. Chen stopped at a set of double doors and turned to Naomi one last time. "The boy is very sick," she said quietly, and for the first time, her voice softened. "His father is fragile. Don't give him a reason to notice you. Just do your job and stay invisible." Naomi wanted to ask what was wrong with the boy. What kind of sickness needed a full medical wing? But she remembered the rules. No questions. So she nodded again. Mrs. Chen opened the doors. And Naomi stepped into a world that looked nothing like a child's room, and everything like a tomb. 3 months earlier, Naomi's life had been different. Not better, just different. She'd been working double shifts at a diner in the Bronx, coming home to a 2-bedroom apartment that smelled like mold and fried food, trying to keep Marcus away from the corner boys and Janae's grades from slipping. Their parents had been gone 6 months when the eviction notice came. 6 months since the drunk driver ran a red light and turned Naomi from a sister into a mother overnight. She remembered standing in that cramped apartment, holding the pink slip in her shaking hands, and thinking, this is it. This is where we fall apart. Marcus had looked at her with those hard eyes that used to be soft, used to laugh, and said, maybe I should just drop out. Get a real job. He was 16. Janae had cried into her pillow that night, whispering, "I miss Mom." Naomi didn't sleep. She scrolled through job boards until her eyes burned, applying to anything, everything. Cleaning services, retail, warehouses. Most didn't respond. The ones that did offered $12 an hour, no benefits, no chance. Then she saw it, live-in domestic position. Westchester Estate. $18 per hour plus room and board. She applied at 3 a.m. They called her at 9. By noon, she was on a train heading north, carrying everything she owned in a duffel bag, leaving Marcus and Janae with her neighbor Miss Rosa, promising she'd send money every week, promising she'd come back for them soon, promising she wouldn't fail. The first week at the Hale estate, Naomi learned how to be invisible. She learned that the other staff, 3 housekeepers, 2 cooks, a groundskeeper, and a night nurse, had their hierarchy, and she was at the bottom. She learned that Mrs. Chen watched everything with eyes like a hawk, looking for reasons to write you up, looking for excuses to tell Mr. Hale you weren't Hale material. She learned that you didn't make eye contact with Mr. Hale when he passed you in the hallways. You pressed yourself against the wall and waited for him to disappear around the corner like a storm cloud moving on. And she learned, fast, that you didn't ask about the boy. His name was Evan, but the staff called him the boy like he was a ghost they weren't allowed to acknowledge. His wing was off limits except during assigned cleaning hours. The night nurse, a severe woman named Margaret, stood guard like a sentry, watching Naomi's every move whenever she entered with her mop and bucket. "Don't touch anything medical," Margaret would say, arms crossed. "Don't look at him too long. Don't speak to him. Just clean and leave." But Naomi couldn't help looking. Evan was small for 7. Pale. His blonde hair stuck to his forehead with sweat even though the room was kept cold. Tubes ran from his thin arms to machines that beeped in rhythm with his shallow breathing. His eyes, when they were open, looked lost, like he was searching for something he couldn't find. He looked like he was dying. And no one talked about it. On her 10th day, Naomi made her first mistake. She'd been cleaning the hallway outside Evan's room when she heard it, a sound so quiet she almost missed it. A whimper. Soft, desperate, like a wounded animal trying not to be heard. Margaret had stepped away to take a phone call. The door was cracked open. Naomi knew she should keep walking. She knew the rules. But that sound. She pushed the door open just enough to see inside. Evan was curled on his side, his small body trembling. His hands were pressed against his stomach, his face twisted in pain. Tears ran down his cheeks, but he wasn't crying out loud. Like he'd learned that crying didn't bring help. Naomi's heart broke. She stepped inside. "Hey," she whispered. "You okay, baby?" Evan's eyes snapped open. He stared at her like she was an apparition, like he couldn't believe someone was actually seeing him. "You hurting?" Naomi asked, moving closer. He nodded, barely. "Where?" He touched his stomach. Naomi didn't know what to do. She wasn't a nurse. She wasn't anyone. But she couldn't just leave him like this. She knelt beside the bed and did the only thing she could think of. She reached out and took his small hand in hers. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're not alone." Evan's fingers squeezed hers. Tight. Desperate. And that's when Mrs. Chen walked in. "What do you think you're doing?" Naomi jerked back like she'd been burned. Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway, her face a mask of fury. I heard him. He was in pain. You were told not to touch him." "I wasn't. I was just." "Get out. Now." Naomi stumbled to her feet, her heart hammering. Evan's eyes followed her, wide and frightened, like she was abandoning him. Mrs. Chen grabbed Naomi's arm and dragged her into the hallway, slamming the door behind them. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mrs. Chen hissed. "That boy is under strict medical supervision. You are not authorized to touch him, speak to him, or make decisions about his care. Do you understand?" He was crying. I don't care if he was screaming. You are a maid. You clean floors. That is all you do here. Naomi's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it. Mrs. Chen's eyes were ice. I'm reporting this to Mr. Hale. If he decides to terminate you, you'll be gone by morning. The words hit Naomi like a fist to the chest. Terminated. Gone by morning. No paycheck. No way to send money to Marcus and Janae. No way to keep them safe. She thought about Marcus's hard eyes. Janae's tears. The eviction notice. The corner boys with their guns and pills. Please, Naomi whispered. Please don't. I need this job. My family. You should have thought about that before you broke the rules. Mrs. Chen turned and walked away, leaving Naomi standing in the cold hallway, her whole world crumbling around her. That night, Naomi lay in her small room in the staff quarters, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the knock on the door that would end everything. It never came. By morning, she learned why. Mr. Hale hadn't fired her. He hadn't even acknowledged the report. He'd simply sent word through Mrs. Chen, the maid stays. But if she oversteps again, she's done. Naomi didn't understand it. Why would a billionaire who barely looked at her give her a second chance? It wasn't until later, much later, that she'd learned the truth. Jonathan Hale hadn't shown mercy. He'd simply been too distracted by the call he'd just received from Dr. Thorne. The call that said his son had maybe a week left to live. And that's when Naomi started paying attention to something no one else had noticed. Something about Evan's pain. Something about the timing. Something that made her blood run cold every time Dr. Thorne walked through those doors with his black medical bag and his smile that never reached his eyes. The second chance didn't feel like mercy. It felt like a noose loosening just enough to let Naomi breathe before it tightened again. Mrs. Chen made sure of that. You'll be assigned to the boys' wing permanently, she'd said the morning after Naomi's near-firing, her voice sharp as broken glass. Night shift. Midnight to 8. You'll clean while he sleeps. Margaret will supervise. One wrong move, and Mr. Hale won't be so forgiving next time. Naomi nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She'd dodged a bullet, but barely. The message was clear: you're being watched. What Mrs. Chen didn't know, what none of them knew, was that being assigned to Evan's wing wasn't a punishment. It was an opportunity. Because Naomi had questions. Questions that had kept her awake every night since she'd held that little boy's hand and felt his desperation. Questions about why a child with access to the best medical care money could buy looked like he was slowly being erased from existence. And now she'd have front row seats to find the answers. The first night on the new shift, Naomi arrived at Evan's suite at 11:45 p.m. Margaret was already there, stationed in a chair by the door like a prison guard, her face illuminated by the glow of her tablet. "You're early," Margaret said without looking up. "Yes. He's asleep. Don't wake him. Don't touch anything except the floors and surfaces I point out. Stay quiet." Naomi nodded and got to work. The suite was massive, bigger than the apartment Naomi had grown up in. One side was set up like a hospital room, adjustable bed, 4 stands, monitors tracking heart rate and oxygen levels. The other side looked like someone had tried to make it feel like a child's space. Toys on shelves that looked untouched, a bookshelf filled with stories no one read to him, a window with curtains drawn tight against the night. But it was the machines that dominated the room. Their beeping filled the silence like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. Evan lay in the bed, small and still, his chest rising and falling in shallow rhythm. Even in sleep, his face was tight with pain. Naomi's heart twisted. She worked quietly, mopping the floors, wiping down surfaces, trying not to stare. But she couldn't help it. Every few minutes, her eyes drifted back to him. And that's when she noticed it. Around 1:30 a.m., Evan's breathing changed. It became faster, more labored. His hands curled into fists. His face scrunched up like he was fighting something in his sleep. Margaret didn't look up from her tablet. Naomi paused mid-wipe, watching. Evan's body started to tremble. Just slightly at first, then harder. His legs twitched. A soft whimper escaped his throat. "Is he okay?" Naomi whispered. "He's fine," Margaret said flatly. "It's normal. Keep cleaning." Normal? Naomi watched Evan's small body shake for another 30 seconds before the tremors finally subsided. His breathing evened out. The tension in his face eased. And Margaret still hadn't looked up. Naomi filed it away in her mind and kept working. But something about it felt wrong. The timing. The way Margaret dismissed it like it was nothing. The way no one seemed to care. The second night, the same thing happened. 1:32 a.m. Evan's breathing quickened. Tremors. Whimpering. Then it passed. Margaret scrolled through her tablet. The third night, Naomi started paying closer attention. She noticed that just before the tremor started, the 4-bag hanging beside Evan's bed would finish draining, and a new medication would automatically pump into his system. Blue liquid. Clear tubing. Then 20 minutes later, tremors. On the fourth night, Naomi pulled out her phone and opened a new note. Her hands shook as she typed. 1:28 a.m. New 4 medication starts. Blue liquid. 1:31 a.m. Breathing changes. Gets faster. 1:33 a.m. Tremors begin. Lasts about 45 seconds. 1:35 a.m. Tremors stop. He settles. She saved it. Locked her phone. Kept cleaning. Margaret never noticed. By the end of the second week, Naomi had filled pages of notes. She documented everything. The times Dr. Thorne visited, always late afternoon, always with his black medical bag. The injections he administered, Evan always got worse after. The pills Margaret gave him at 10 p.m., Evan would cry in his sleep an hour later. The patterns were everywhere once she started looking. But it was the moments without medication that haunted her most. On the rare mornings when Dr. Thorne was delayed, when a procedure got rescheduled or an appointment ran late, Evan seemed different. His color was better. His breathing steadier. He'd even opened his eyes once and looked at Naomi while she cleaned, and for just a second, he didn't look like a boy dying. He looked like a boy trapped. Naomi started taking more risks. She'd linger a few extra minutes after Margaret left for her break. She'd crouch beside Evan's bed and whisper, "Hey, it's okay. I'm here." Sometimes he'd stir. Sometimes his fingers would twitch like he was trying to reach for something. And once, just once, he'd opened his eyes fully and stared at her with such desperate, pleading intensity that Naomi felt it in her bones. He was trying to tell her something. 3 weeks into her new shift, Naomi made a discovery that changed everything. It was 3 a.m. Margaret had stepped out for her 15-minute smoke break, something she did like clockwork every night. Naomi was wiping down the counter near Evan's medical cart when she saw it. A folder. Half hidden under a stack of towels. She glanced at the door. Still closed. She could hear Margaret's footsteps fading down the hallway. Naomi's heart hammered in her chest as she reached for the folder and flipped it open. Inside were medical records, test results, lab reports, and scans. Dated 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Her eyes scanned the pages, searching for something, anything, that made sense. She didn't have medical training, but she could read enough to understand the basics. And what she saw made her blood run cold. Every scan showed the same thing. No abnormalities detected. No degenerative disease. No genetic markers for terminal illness. The reports all ended the same way. Patient stable. Continue current treatment regimen. Stable. But Evan wasn't stable. He was dying. Naomi's hands started shaking. She flipped to the medication list, and her stomach dropped. 5 different prescriptions. All signed by Dr. Marcus Thorne. All administered daily. And at the bottom of the page, in small print, a note, dosage adjustments necessary to maintain symptom progression. Maintain symptom progression. Not stop. Not cure. Maintain. Naomi's vision blurred. Her breath came in short gasps. They weren't trying to save him. They were keeping him sick. The sound of footsteps snapped her back to reality. She shoved the folder back under the towels, grabbed her cleaning rag, and spun around just as Margaret walked back in. "You done yet?" Margaret asked, eyeing her suspiciously. "Almost," Naomi managed, her voice barely steady. She finished cleaning in silence, her mind racing. She didn't know what to do. Who could she tell? Mrs. Chen would fire her on the spot. Jonathan Hale would never believe a maid over his trusted doctor. But she couldn't just do nothing. That night, lying in her narrow bed, Naomi pulled out her phone and stared at her notes. Pages and pages of times, symptoms, patterns, proof. She didn't know what she was going to do with it yet. But she knew one thing for certain. If no one else was going to save Evan Hale, then she would. Even if it destroyed her. The next morning, Naomi woke to her phone buzzing. A text from Marcus. "They're evicting us next week. Need money now." And underneath it, a message from Mrs. Chen. "Report to Mr. Hale's study at 9 a.m. He wants to speak with you." Naomi's heart stopped. She stared at the message, her hands trembling. This was it. Someone had seen something. Margaret had noticed. Dr. Thorne had found out. She was about to lose everything. And the only person who could prove what was really happening to Evan Hale, the only person who'd been documenting the truth, was about to be silenced. Naomi stood outside Jonathan Hale's study at 8:57 a.m., her palms sweating, her heart trying to beat its way out of her chest. This was it. The end. She'd been too careless, asked too many questions, stayed too long in Evan's room. Someone had noticed. Someone had told. She thought about Marcus and Janae. About the eviction notice. About the corner boys with their guns and their promises of easy money. She thought about running. But where would she run to? At exactly 9 a.m., the heavy oak door swung open. Mrs. Chen stood there, her face unreadable. "He's waiting," she said coldly. Naomi stepped inside. The study was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes that probably cost more than Naomi made in a year. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat Jonathan Hale, his eyes fixed on a laptop screen, his jaw tight. He didn't look up. Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. "Sir, the maid is here." Jonathan's fingers stopped typing. Slowly, he raised his eyes to Naomi. They were ice blue and empty, like he was looking through her instead of at her. "Sit," he said. Naomi sat in the leather chair across from him, feeling like a child called to the principal's office. Mrs. Chen remained standing by the door, arms crossed, watching. Jonathan closed his laptop with a soft click. The silence that followed felt like drowning. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked finally. Naomi's throat was so dry she could barely speak. "No, sir. Mrs. Chen tells me you've been asking questions. About my son." Naomi's stomach dropped. She says you've been lingering in his room longer than necessary. Watching him. Taking notes on your phone." Oh God. They'd seen her. "I wasn't," Naomi started, but Jonathan raised a hand. "Let me be very clear," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You are a maid. You were hired to clean floors, not to diagnose my son. You have no medical training, no credentials, no right to question the care he's receiving from some of the best doctors in the world." "I know, sir, but nothing." Jonathan's voice cracked like a whip. "Do you have any idea how much I've spent trying to save that boy? How many specialists I've flown in? How many experimental treatments we've tried?" "I'm not saying you didn't." "Then what are you saying?" Jonathan leaned forward, his eyes burning into hers. "What exactly do you think you've discovered that trained physicians with decades of experience have missed?" Naomi's hands were shaking. She knew she should stop. Knew she should apologize, bow her head, and beg to keep her job. But when she closed her eyes, all she could see was Evan's face. The tremors. The fear. The way he got worse after every injection, every pill, every visit from Dr. Thorne. His symptoms, Naomi whispered. They follow a pattern. The room went deathly silent. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. Excuse me. The medications, Naomi continued, her voice gaining strength even as her body trembled. I've been watching. Every time Dr. Thorne gives him the blue 4, Evan gets worse. Every time he gets the injection, he has tremors. And on the days when Dr. Thorne is late, when the medications are delayed. Enough. Jonathan's voice was deadly quiet. Evan gets better, Naomi finished. Jonathan stood so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood. You are out of line. I kept notes, Naomi said desperately. Times, symptoms, everything. I can show you. You kept notes. Mrs. Chen's voice was shrill with outrage. You were documenting a minor child's medical condition without authorization. I was trying to help. You were violating privacy laws. Mrs. Chen turned to Jonathan. Sir, this is grounds for immediate termination and possible legal action. Naomi's vision blurred. Please, just look at the patterns. Something isn't right. Dr. Marcus Thorne, Jonathan said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury, has been our family physician for 12 years. He delivered my son. He held my wife's hand when she died. He has dedicated his entire practice to saving Evan's life. But what if? What if what? Jonathan slammed his hand on the desk, making Naomi jump. What if you, a maid, know better than a doctor who graduated top of his class from Johns Hopkins? What if all the specialists from Mayo Clinic, from Switzerland, from Tokyo, all of them missed something that you spotted while mopping floors? When he put it like that, Naomi heard how insane it sounded. How arrogant. How impossible. But she'd seen what she'd seen. I just think, Naomi said quietly, maybe someone should check. Run different tests. Get a second opinion that isn't connected to Dr. Thorne. Get out. Naomi looked up. Jonathan's face was stone. Sir. Get out of my house. The words hit Naomi like a physical blow. Please, I need this job. My brother and sister. I don't care about your brother and sister. Jonathan's voice was ice. I care about my son. And right now, you are standing in my study, in my home, accusing the man trying to save his life of, what exactly? Incompetence? Malpractice? What are you implying? Naomi's mouth opened, but no words came out, because she didn't know what she was implying. Not exactly. She just knew something was wrong. She felt it in her bones. But feelings weren't evidence. Feelings weren't proof. And feelings wouldn't convince a desperate billionaire to doubt the only people offering him hope. You have two choices, Jonathan said coldly. You can leave now, and I'll give you 2 weeks severance pay. Or you can stop asking questions, do your job, and keep the income your family apparently depends on. Naomi's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. She thought about Evan's small hand squeezing hers. About his eyes begging for help. About the medical record she'd found that said maintain symptom progression. She thought about Marcus, 1 week away from eviction, one bad decision away from ending up in jail or worse. She thought about Janae crying herself to sleep. And she made her choice. I'll stay, she whispered. Good. Jonathan sat back down, already turning back to his laptop. Mrs. Chen will escort you out. You're being reassigned. You won't be working in Evan's wing anymore. The words were a punch to the gut. But that's non-negotiable. You've proven you can't maintain professional boundaries. Someone else will handle that area. Please, let me just. We're done here. Mrs. Chen grabbed Naomi's arm and pulled her toward the door. As Naomi was led out, she glanced back one last time. Jonathan Hale sat at his desk, his shoulders slumped, his hand pressed against his forehead like he was fighting off a headache. Or fighting off doubt. That night, Naomi lay in her narrow bed, staring at her phone. Marcus had sent 3 more texts. "Where's the money? They're gonna kick us out. Naomi, answer me." She'd tried calling, but he hadn't picked up. She knew why. He was angry, disappointed, wondering why his older sister couldn't save them. Naomi opened her notes app. All her observations. All her documentation. Weeks of evidence that no one wanted to see. She should delete it. Forget it. Do her job and stay invisible like Mrs. Chen had warned her. But then her phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something made her open it. The message had no words. Just an attachment. A photo. Naomi's hand started shaking as the image loaded. It was a medical record. Evan's medical record. From a hospital in Boston. Dated 2 years ago. And at the bottom, in red letters, a note she'd never seen before. Patient evaluation. No underlying pathology detected. Recommend cessation of all medications and re-evaluation by independent physician. Parental consent declined. Parental consent declined. Someone had tried to stop this. 2 years ago. Someone had tried to tell Jonathan the truth. And he'd said no. Naomi stared at the photo, her heart pounding. Then another message came through. They're going to kill him. And you're the only one who can stop it. But you need to act fast. He doesn't have much time left. Naomi's blood ran cold. Who is this? The 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then one final message. Someone who made the same mistake you're about to make. I stayed quiet. And a child died because of it. Don't be me. The dots appeared again. Dr. Thorne is coming tomorrow. 4 p.m. whatever he gives Evan then. It's the final dose. Naomi's vision blurred. Final dose. She had less than 24 hours. And she'd just been banned from the only place she could save him. The next morning, the Hale estate felt different. Wrong. Staff members moved through the halls in tight clusters, whispering. The cook's eyes were red from crying. Even Mrs. Chen's sharp edges seemed dulled, her face drawn and pale. Naomi was mopping the West Wing corridor, far from Evan's room, far from where she wanted to be, when she overheard 2 housekeepers talking. I heard Mr. Hale on the phone this morning, the younger one whispered. He was crying. Actually crying. Dr. Thorne was here at dawn, the other replied. Stayed in the boys' room for over an hour. When he came out, he told Mr. Hale to prepare himself. Naomi's hands froze on the mop handle. Prepare himself for what? What do you think? The woman's voice cracked. That poor baby doesn't have much time left. The words hit Naomi like a freight train. She abandoned the mop and rushed toward the service stairs, her heart hammering. She had to see him. Had to know if it was true. But she only made it halfway before Mrs. Chen appeared, blocking her path. Your assignment is the West Wing, she said coldly. Not the East. Move. I just need to. No. Mrs. Chen's eyes were hard, but underneath, Naomi saw something else. Grief. Mr. Hale gave explicit orders. You're not to go near that wing. Not today. Not ever. Please. Naomi. For the first time, Mrs. Chen used her name. That little boy is dying. His father is falling apart. The last thing anyone needs is you making this harder than it already is. Naomi wanted to scream that she could make it easier, that she could help, but the words died in her throat. Because who was she? A maid with notes on her phone and a conspiracy theory that sounded insane even to her own ears. She turned back to her mop, her vision blurred with tears. But she didn't stop listening. By noon, the house was in chaos. Dr. Thorne arrived with two other physicians Naomi had never seen before. They swept through the mansion like a medical SWAT team, carrying equipment, speaking in urgent tones. Jonathan Hale looked like a ghost. He stood in the hallway outside Evan's room, one hand pressed against the wall like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Naomi watched from the shadows of the service corridor, her stomach churning. At 2:47 p.m., Dr. Thorne emerged from Evan's room. His face was grave, professional. He placed a hand on Jonathan's shoulder and spoke in low tones Naomi couldn't hear. But she saw Jonathan's face crumble. Saw him grab Dr. Thorne's arm. Saw him mouth the words, "How long?" Dr. Thorne shook his head slowly, then held up his hand. Fingers splayed. 5 hours. Maybe 6. Jonathan's knees buckled. He sank against the wall, his hand over his mouth, his whole body shaking. Dr. Thorne knelt beside him, still talking, still touching his shoulder like a trusted friend comforting a grieving father. And something in Naomi's chest screamed wrong, wrong, wrong. At 3:30 p.m., Jonathan's phone rang. Naomi was close enough to hear his voice through the study door. "What? Now?" A pause. "That's impossible. I can't leave him." Another pause, longer this time. "The board will understand. My son is dying." Silence. Then, "Are you serious? They're threatening to pull the merger? Today?" Naomi pressed closer to the door. "Fine. Fine. I'll call in. Put me on video conference. What do you mean the system's down?" Jonathan's voice rose. "Then fix it. I'm not leaving my son's bedside for Mr. Hale." Dr. Thorne's smooth voice cut through. Naomi hadn't heard him approach. "If I may, the medication I'm about to administer will make Evan comfortable, but he'll sleep for several hours. Deeply. You wouldn't be able to speak with him anyway." "I don't care. I need to be here." "Jonathan." Dr. Thorne's voice dropped, became almost paternal. "This merger represents thousands of jobs. Your employees are counting on you. And Evan. Evan won't be alone. Margaret will be here. I'll be here. And when he wakes, if he wakes, you'll be the first person we call." The silence stretched. "I'll take care of him," Dr. Thorne said softly. "I promise. Like he was my own son." Naomi heard Jonathan's ragged breath. Heard the sound of defeat. 2 hours, Jonathan said finally. "I'll handle the board in 2 hours and come straight back." "Of course." 15 minutes later, Naomi watched through a window as Jonathan's car disappeared down the long driveway. And Dr. Thorne stood at Evan's door, watching it go, a small smile playing at his lips. At 4:03 p.m., Naomi made her decision. She slipped through the service corridors toward the east wing, her heart in her throat. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen dealing with dinner preparations. Margaret had gone to the pharmacy to pick up additional supplies. Naomi had heard Dr. Thorne send her himself. The coast wouldn't be clear for long. She reached the corner near Evan's suite and peered around. Dr. Thorne was inside. The door was cracked open. She could hear him moving around, the clink of glass vials, the rustle of his medical bag. Then his voice, low and satisfied, "There we go. That should do it." Naomi's blood turned to ice. She watched through the crack as Dr. Thorne lifted a syringe to the light, checking it. The liquid inside was dark amber, thick. Nothing like the medications Naomi had seen before. He moved toward Evan's foreline. Naomi's mysterious Textus word screamed in her mind. Whatever he gives Evan then, it's the final dose. Her body moved before her brain caught up. She shoved the door open. Dr. Thorne spun around, the syringe still in his hand. "What are you? You're not supposed to be here." "What is that?" Naomi's voice shook. "Comfort medication. Now leave before I have security remove you." "Comfort medication for what?" Dr. Thorne's eyes narrowed. "For a dying child. Now get out." Naomi looked past him to the bed. Evan was unconscious, his small chest barely moving. His skin was grey. His lips were almost blue. He looked like he was already dead. "I want to see the prescription," Naomi said. "Excuse me." "Show me the label. Show me what's in that syringe." Dr. Thorne's pleasant mask cracked. "You have exactly 5 seconds to leave this room, or I will personally ensure you never work again." "Why won't you show me?" "Because I don't answer to maids." Dr. Thorne's voice was sharp now, dangerous. "Mr. Hale entrusted me with his son's care. Not you. Me. Now move." He turned back to the foreline. Naomi's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Time stopped. Dr. Thorne stared at her in absolute shock. "Did you just—" "Please," Naomi whispered. "Just wait. Wait until Mr. Hale gets back. Let him be here. Let him see." "Let him see what?" Dr. Thorne yanked his arm free. "His son suffering? No. I'm ending the boy's pain. That's what mercy looks like." "That's not mercy. You know nothing." Dr. Thorne stepped toward her, and for the first time, Naomi saw past the professional mask to what was underneath. Not compassion. Rage. "I have spent 12 years caring for this family. 12 years of late nights, emergency calls, watching that man waste millions on false hope. And now, finally, we can end this. Let the boy rest. Let his father grieve and move on." "Move on to what?" Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Thorne's smile was cold. "To writing another check to the Marcus Thorne Foundation for Rare Pediatric Diseases. A very generous check, I imagine. Guilt makes people remarkably charitable." Naomi's stomach turned. "You're going to kill him," she breathed. "That's what this is. You're going to kill him and make it look like the disease." "Careful." Dr. Thorne's voice was ice. "That sounds dangerously close to an accusation. And accusations require proof, which you don't have." He raised the syringe again. Naomi lunged for the call button on Evan's bed. Dr. Thorne grabbed her arm, surprisingly strong. "Don't." The syringe fell from his hand, hit the floor, shattered. Amber liquid spread across the white tile. They both stared at it. Then Dr. Thorne looked at Naomi, and his eyes were murderous. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" The door burst open. Margaret stood there, her face white. "What's going on?" "I heard." She saw Naomi, saw Dr. Thorne, saw the broken syringe on the floor. "She attacked me," Dr. Thorne said smoothly, instantly. "Tried to interfere with medical treatment. Called security. Now." "No," Naomi started. But Margaret was already reaching for her radio. And from the bed, a sound that froze everyone in place. A gasp. Sharp. Desperate. Human. All three of them turned. Evan's eyes were open. And he was staring straight at Naomi. His lips moved. No sound came out. But Naomi could read what he was trying to say. "Help me." Everything happened at once. Margaret's radio crackled to life. "Security to the East Wing. Medical emergency. Code." "No emergency," Dr. Thorne cut in smoothly, raising his hands. "False alarm. Just a confused staff member who needs to be escorted out." But Evan's eyes were still open, still locked on Naomi, still pleading. And his breathing was getting worse. Short, shallow gasps like his lungs were forgetting how to work. "He needs help," Naomi said, her voice breaking. "Look at him." "He's dying," Dr. Thorne said flatly. "This is what dying looks like. Margaret, get her out of here so I can prepare another dose." "Another dose?" Naomi's voice rose. "You mean another syringe full of poison?" The word hung in the air like a grenade. Margaret's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "She's hysterical," Dr. Thorne said. suffering from some kind of breakdown. This is what happens when unqualified people get emotionally attached. The medical records from Boston, Naomi interrupted, her words tumbling out in a desperate rush. 2 years ago. They said there was nothing wrong with him. They said to stop the medications. But someone refused. Boston. Margaret's eyes flickered with something. Confusion. Or recognition. Dr. Thorne's face hardened. That evaluation was inconclusive. They missed the underlying pathology that we later discovered. You discovered? Naomi shot back. Or you created? That's enough. Dr. Thorne pulled out his phone. I'm calling Mr. Hale. He needs to know his son's final hours are being disrupted by delusional. Evan made a sound. Not a gasp this time. A wheeze. Wet and rattling. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Margaret gasped. Oh God. It's internal hemorrhaging, Dr. Thorne said quickly. A complication of his condition. I need to administer emergency medication immediately. No. Naomi threw herself between Dr. Thorne and the bed. You're not touching him. Move, or I'll have you arrested for assault. Security's here. Margaret's voice was shrill with panic as heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway. 2 uniformed guards burst through the door. Restrain her, Dr. Thorne ordered, pointing at Naomi. She's interfering with emergency medical care. The guards moved toward Naomi. She looked at Evan, his small body convulsing now, his eyes rolling back, and made the choice that would either save his life or destroy hers. She grabbed the foreline and ripped it from his arm. No. Dr. Thorne lunged forward. But Naomi was already yanking tubes free, knocking the medication bags to the floor, tearing away everything connected to that little boy. The guards grabbed her arms, hauled her back. What are you doing? Margaret screamed. You're killing him. They're already killing him. Naomi shouted, fighting against the guard's grip. The medications are poison. Check his file. Check Boston. Someone please just look. One guard wrenched her arms behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulders. Dr. Thorne was already reconnecting the 4 with trembling hands. Get her out of here now. Wait. Margaret's voice was quiet. Too quiet. Everyone froze. She was staring at Evan. The convulsions had stopped. His breathing, still shallow, still labored, was steadying. The blue tinge was fading from his lips. What? Margaret whispered. How is he? It's adrenaline, Dr. Thorne said quickly. A temporary response. It won't last. I need to re-establish the 4 before. Don't touch him. The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Jonathan Hale stood there, his suit jacket gone, his tie loose, his face ashen. He looked like he'd run from the car. Sir, Dr. Thorne started. Thank God you're here. This woman has lost her mind. She physically assaulted me, destroyed medical equipment, and disconnected your son's life support. I said don't touch him. Jonathan's eyes were locked on Evan. On his son, whose chest was rising and falling more steadily than it had in weeks. Jonathan, listen to me. Dr. Thorne's voice took on an urgent edge. Every second without those medications is killing him. We need to reconnect immediately or... Why is he breathing better? The question was soft. Deadly. Dr. Thorne faltered. What? My son. Jonathan stepped into the room. Without the medications. Why is he breathing better? His not. It's a reflexive response. The body's final surge before. How long has this final surge been happening? Jonathan's eyes were still on Evan. Because I've been standing in that hallway for 3 minutes. And I've watched my son's color improve. Watched his breathing steady. Watched him look more alive than he has in months. The room was deathly silent. It's coincidental, Dr. Thorne said, but his smooth confidence was cracking. A temporary improvement that will rapidly decline without proper intervention. Show me the syringe. I'm sorry. The one that broke. Show me what was in it. Dr. Thorne's jaw tightened. It was comfort medication. Standard palliative care. Show me the label. Jonathan, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 8 months. Jonathan's voice was shaking now. Not with grief. With rage. That woman, he pointed at Naomi, the one you want arrested for assault? She tried to tell me something was wrong 3 weeks ago. I threw her out of my office. Called her crazy. Delusional. He turned to face Dr. Thorne fully. But my son is breathing better right now than he was 5 minutes ago. And the only thing that changed is that his medications were disconnected. That doesn't mean. What was in the syringe? Marcus. The use of his first name made Dr. Thorne flinch. A compound designed to ease suffering. What was in it? Dr. Thorne's face hardened. I've been your family's physician for 12 years. I held your wife's hand when she died. I've dedicated my entire practice to saving your son's life, and you're going to believe some paranoid made over me. I'm going to believe what I'm seeing with my own eyes, Jonathan said quietly. My son was dying with your medications. He's improving without them. So either you're the most incompetent doctor in America, or what? Dr. Thorne's voice turned sharp. Say it, Jonathan. Accuse me. Tell me what you think I've been doing. The challenge hung in the air. Jonathan opened his mouth. Then Evan spoke. It was barely a whisper. Hoarse and broken. But unmistakable. Dad. Everyone spun toward the bed. Evan's eyes were open. Fully open. Focused. Looking right at his father. Dad, it hurts. When he gives me. His small hand lifted, trembling, pointing. At Dr. Thorne. The world stopped. Jonathan's face went white. Then red. Then something beyond rage. Get away from my son. Jonathan, he's confused. Get away from him. Jonathan's voice was thunder. Margaret, call 911. Real paramedics. Real doctors. Now. Margaret fumbled for her phone. Dr. Thorne took a step back. Then another. His professional mask completely shattered now, replaced with something cold and calculating. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. A very expensive mistake. Do you have any idea what kind of lawsuits I can bring against you for defamation? For wrongful termination? I'll destroy you. Guards. Jonathan's voice was ice. Detain him. No one leaves this room until the police arrive. Police. Dr. Thorne's laugh was sharp. On what grounds? The word of a dying child and a maid with a conspiracy theory. On the grounds that I want every medication you've given my son in the last 8 months tested. Every syringe. Every 4-bag. Every pill. Jonathan moved to Evan's bedside, taking his son's small hand in his. And if I find out you've been poisoning him, if I find out you've been keeping him sick to line your pockets, I will spend every dollar I have making sure you rot in prison for the rest of your life. Dr. Thorne's face went blank. Then he moved. Fast. Faster than anyone expected. He grabbed his medical bag and threw it at the nearest guard, sending the man stumbling. Shoved Margaret into the other guard. Bolted for the door. Stop him. Jonathan shouted. But Dr. Thorne was already in the hallway, running. The guards recovered, took off after him. And Naomi, still held by one security officer, watched it all unfold with her heart in her throat. Because she'd done it. She'd saved him. But in the hallway, she could hear shouting. Scuffling. Then a crash. Then a gunshot. The security guard holding Naomi went rigid. Did he just? Another shot. Then sirens. So many sirens. Jonathan pulled Evan close, shielding his son's body with his own. Margaret stood frozen, her phone still pressed to her ear, her voice shaking as she spoke to the 911 dispatcher. And Naomi thought, it's over. It has to be over. But then her phone buzzed in her pocket. The guard heard it. Pulled it out. Read the screen. His face went pale. Sir, he said to Jonathan, you need to see this. He held up the phone. A text message. From the unknown number. Dr. Thorne isn't working alone. Check the hospital records. Check who authorized the treatments. Check who approved every invoice. And whatever you do, don't let them take Evan to St. Catherine's Memorial. That's where they finish what Thorne started. The next 6 hours were chaos. Paramedics flooded the Hale estate, not from St. Catherine's Memorial, but from Mercy General, 15 miles away, after Jonathan made a single phone call to the mayor himself. Evan was stabilized, loaded into an ambulance, hooked up to clean fours with saline and nothing else. Jonathan rode with him, his hand never leaving his son's. Naomi rode in the back of a police car. Not arrested. Not exactly. But not free either. Just routine questioning, the officer had said. But his hand had hovered near his cuffs the whole ride, and Naomi knew what routine questioning meant for someone who looked like her. She was a black maid who'd accused a white doctor of murder. The math wasn't complicated. At the hospital, they separated her into a small room with cinderblock walls and furniture bolted to the floor. 2 detectives entered, one older, white, with tired eyes, one younger, black, with a wedding ring and a notepad. I'm Detective Ramirez, the older one said. This is Detective Chen. We need to ask you some questions about what happened at the Hale residence. Is Evan okay? Naomi asked immediately. He's being evaluated. Detective Chen sat across from her. Right now, we need to understand your version of events. Your version. Like there were multiple truths to choose from. Naomi took a breath and told them everything. The patterns she'd noticed. The notes she'd kept. The medical records from Boston. The mysterious texts. The syringe. Dr. Thorne's rage when she'd interfered. When she finished, Ramirez and Chen exchanged a long look. These notes you mentioned, Chen said carefully. Do you still have them? Naomi's phone was in an evidence bag. She nodded toward it. Everything's in there. Times. Symptoms. Dates. 3 weeks of documentation. Ramirez picked up the bag, pulled out her phone. Password. Naomi gave it to him. The 2 detectives huddled over the screen, scrolling, their faces unreadable. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Ramirez looked up. These observations, they're detailed. Methodical. You documented every medication administration, every symptom spike, every time the child's condition improved when treatment was delayed. Yes. Why? The question caught Naomi off guard. What? Why did you do this? Ramirez leaned forward. You're a domestic worker, not a nurse, not a family member. Why risk your job, your freedom, for a child you barely knew? Naomi's throat tightened. Because no one else was looking. Chen's pen stopped moving. Because everyone saw what they expected to see, Naomi continued, her voice shaking. A sick kid with rich parents. Expensive doctors. State-of-the-art care. No one questioned it. No one thought to ask why a 7-year-old with access to the best medicine in the world kept getting worse instead of better. But you did, Chen said quietly. I did. Why? Naomi thought about Marcus and Janae. About her parents. About the drunk driver who'd killed them and walked away with a suspended license because his lawyer was expensive and their lawyer was court-appointed. About all the times the system had looked at people like her and decided they didn't matter enough to save. "Because I know what it's like when no one believes you," she said finally. "When people with power and money tell you you're wrong, you're crazy, you're making things up. I know what it feels like to scream for help and have everyone look the other way." Her eyes burned. "I wasn't going to let that happen to Evan. Not if I could stop it." The room went quiet. Then Ramirez's radio crackled. "Detective, toxicology's back. You need to see this." The toxicology report was 73 pages long. Naomi sat in the room for another 40 minutes before Chen came back, his face ashen. "The preliminary screens came back," he said. "We ran tests on the 4 bags, the syringes, even residue from the broken ampule at the scene." Naomi's heart hammered. And 3 of the medications Evan was receiving contained compounds that shouldn't have been there. Substances that would mimic symptoms of degenerative illness. Tremors. Organ stress. Seizures. Naomi's vision blurred. "I was right." "You were right." Chen sat down heavily. "The syringe Dr. Thorne tried to administer, the one you knocked from his hand, contained a concentrated dose of potassium chloride mixed with sedatives. If he'd injected that into Evan's 4..." "He didn't finish. He didn't have to. It would have stopped his heart," Naomi whispered. Chen nodded. "Made it look like natural progression of his illness. Peaceful. Painless. No one would have questioned it." Naomi thought she might throw up. "There's more," Chen continued. "We pulled Dr. Thorne's financial records. Wire transfers from Jonathan Hale for medical treatments, equipment, consultations, over $8 million in the last 2 years alone. $8 million. And that's just what we've found so far. We're cross-referencing with other patients Dr. Thorne treated." Chen's jaw tightened. "We found 2 similar cases. Wealthy families. Children with mysterious, untreatable illnesses. Both children died. Both families made substantial donations to Dr. Thorne's research foundation afterward." Naomi's hands started shaking. "How did no one catch this?" "Because he was careful. He used legitimate medications, just modified them. Doses calibrated to cause symptoms without immediate red flags. And he targeted families with money, grief, and desperation. People who trusted him completely." "People like Jonathan Hale," Naomi said quietly. "Exactly." Chen leaned forward. "Ms. Turner, what you did today, what you documented, what you risked, you saved that child's life. If you hadn't intervened, Evan Hale would be dead right now." The words should have felt like victory. Instead, Naomi just felt exhausted. "What happens now?" "Now." Chen stood. "Now you're free to go. And Dr. Marcus Thorne is going to spend the rest of his life in prison." Except Dr. Thorne wasn't in custody. Naomi found out an hour later when Ramirez stormed back into the room, his face dark with fury. "He got away," he said. "After the shooting at the estate, he disappeared. We found his car abandoned 3 miles from the Hale property. No sign of him." "What about the shots fired?" Naomi asked. "Warning shots. Security fired twice trying to stop him. He had a head start and knew the property. By the time backup arrived, he was gone." Chen cursed under his breath. "We've got APB out. Airports, train stations, borders." "He's not running," Naomi interrupted. Both detectives looked at her. "What makes you say that?" Ramirez asked. Naomi thought about the text. Dr. Thorne isn't working alone. Because he doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He thinks he's smart enough to get away with it. And if he's been doing this for years without getting caught. She looked up at the detectives. He has help. Resources. People protecting him. Like who? Chen asked. Naomi pulled out her phone. They'd returned it when they cleared her, and opened the mysterious texts. "Whoever sent me these," she said. They knew about Boston. They knew about the final dose. They knew Thorne wasn't working alone. She scrolled to the last message. "Don't let them take Evan to St. Catherine's Memorial. That's where they finish what Thorne started." St. Catherine's, Ramirez read over her shoulder. "That's where Thorne has admitting privileges. Where he treated most of his patients. And where the other 2 children died," Chen added grimly. The pieces were clicking into place. "It's not just Thorne," Naomi said. "It's the hospital. Or someone at the hospital. Someone who helped cover this up. Someone who's still there." Ramirez pulled out his radio. "I need a warrant for St. Catherine's Memorial. Medical records, financial documents, personnel files, everything." But before he could finish, Naomi's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "They know you're onto them. They know what toxicology found. And they know Evan is the only living witness. Get to his room. Now." Naomi's blood ran cold. She was already running before the detectives could react. Down the hallway. Past nurses. Past security. Following the signs to pediatric ICU. She burst through the double doors and her heart stopped. Evan's room was at the end of the hall. And standing outside it, in a white coat with a hospital badge, was a woman Naomi had never seen before. Holding a syringe. Reaching for the door handle. "Stop!" Naomi screamed. The woman's head snapped up. Their eyes met. And the woman smiled. Then she pushed open the door and disappeared inside. Naomi didn't think. She just moved. She slammed into Evan's hospital room door so hard it bounced off the wall. The woman in the white coat spun around, syringe raised, her other hand reaching for Evan's foreport. "Get away from him." Naomi launched herself across the room. The woman was fast, faster than Naomi expected. She sidestepped, and Naomi crashed into the medical cart, sending instruments clattering to the floor. "Security!" the woman shouted, her voice sharp and authoritative. "Patient's family member is having a psychotic break." But Naomi was already back on her feet, putting herself between the woman and Evan's bed. "I'm not family," Naomi said, breathing hard. "And you're not his doctor." The woman's smile was cold. "I'm Dr. Sarah Vance, Chief of Pediatrics. I've been overseeing Evan's care since he arrived. And you're the maid who's been making wild accusations. Then you won't mind waiting for the detectives who are right behind me," Naomi said. "They'll want to verify your credentials. Check what's in that syringe. Run it through toxicology." Something flickered in Dr. Vance's eyes. Fear. Or calculation. "This is insulin," she said smoothly. "Standard treatment for the hyperglycemia he's developed. Evan's not diabetic. He is now. Stress-induced. It happens in cases of severe." "Liar." The word came from the bed. Both women froze. Evan was awake. His eyes were clearer than Naomi had ever seen them. And he was staring at Dr. Vance with something that looked like recognition. "You were there," Evan whispered, his voice hoarse but steady. "With Dr. Thorne. You gave me the shots that made me throw up." Dr. Vance's professional mask cracked. "Evan, sweetheart, you're confused." "I'm not confused." Evan's small hand reached for the call button. "I remember. You told Dr. Thorne to give me more. You said my dad would pay anything." His finger pressed down. Alarm screamed. Dr. Vance lunged for Evan, syringe raised. Naomi threw herself forward, grabbed the woman's wrist, twisted. The syringe fell. They both hit the floor, grappling. "You've ruined everything." Dr. Vance hissed, her composure completely shattered. "Do you have any idea how much planning this took? How many years?" The door burst open. Detectives Ramirez and Chen, guns drawn. Hospital security right behind them. Freeze. Hands where we can see them. Dr. Vance went still beneath Naomi. Then she started laughing. You think you've won, she said, looking up at Naomi. You think catching us stops anything? There are 6 other doctors in our network. 12 hospitals. Families across 3 states whose children are right now receiving the same treatments Evan got. Naomi's blood turned to ice. And you want to know the beautiful part? Dr. Vance's smile was vicious. Even when you warn them, even when you show them the proof, they won't believe you. Because we're doctors. And you're nobody. Ramirez hauled Dr. Vance to her feet, cuffing her. You have the right to remain silent. Where's Jonathan? Naomi interrupted, suddenly frantic. Where's Evan's father? Chen's face went pale. He left 20 minutes ago. Said he needed to make some calls, handle some business. No. Naomi was already running. No, no, no. She burst into the hallway, scanning frantically. Because Dr. Vance's words echoed in her mind. Families across 3 states whose children are receiving the same treatments. What if Jonathan wasn't making business calls? What if someone had called him first? She found him in the waiting area, phone pressed to his ear, his face gray. Understand, but my son almost died. I can't just ignore. He paused, listening. What do you mean it's not advisable to press charges? These people tried to murder. Naomi grabbed his arm. Jonathan looked up, startled. Who are you talking to? Naomi demanded. My attorney. His saying, Jonathan's voice cracked. His saying if I pursue this, it could expose the hospital to liability. The board is threatening to fight back. They're saying I knew about the risks, that I consented to experimental treatments. They're lying. I know that. Jonathan's hand shook. But they have lawyers. Teams of them. And they're saying if I don't drop this quietly, they'll bury me in litigation for years. Claim I'm an unfit parent. That I doctor shopped for treatments. So you're going to let them get away with it? Naomi's voice was sharp. Let them keep doing this to other children. I don't know what else to do. Jonathan's composure finally shattered completely. I almost lost my son. I can't risk losing him again because I was too proud to back down. Then don't back down for pride, Naomi said quietly. Back down because they're counting on you to. Fight back because they're betting you won't. Jonathan stared at her. You're a billionaire, Naomi continued. You have resources they can't match. Money they can't outlast. And you have something they'll never have. What? The truth. And a 7-year-old boy who's alive because someone finally listened. Jonathan's eyes filled with tears. I didn't listen, he whispered. You tried to tell me. 3 weeks ago. And I threw you out of my office. Called you crazy. If I had believed you sooner. He's alive, Naomi said firmly. That's what matters. And now you get to make sure no other parent has to go through what you did. Jonathan looked down at his phone. At the attorney still talking on the other end, explaining all the reasons to stay quiet. He hung up. Then he made a different call. This is Jonathan Hale, he said. I need you to organize a press conference. Tomorrow. I'm going public with everything. 3 days later, Naomi stood in her small room at the Hale estate, packing her few belongings into the same duffel bag she'd arrived with. The story had broken that morning. Major networks. National headlines. Billionaire's son poisoned by trusted doctor in medical fraud scheme. The hospital's board had resigned. 6 doctors were under investigation. Dr. Thorne was still missing, but his face was everywhere. And Naomi's name was in every article. Heroic maid saves boy's life. Domestic worker exposes multi-million-dollar conspiracy. It should have felt like vindication. Instead, it just felt like time to go. She'd gotten the call from Marcus that morning. The landlord had given them another month. Some anonymous donor had paid their back rent. Marcus didn't have to drop out. Janae had stopped crying herself to sleep. Naomi had done what she came here to do. Saved her family. Now it was time to get back to them. She was zipping her bag when she heard the knock. "Come in," she said, expecting Mrs. Chen with final paperwork. The door opened. Jonathan Hale stood there, looking smaller somehow. More human. "You're leaving," he said. Not a question. "Yes, sir." Without saying goodbye. Naomi's throat tightened. "I didn't think you'd want." "Naomi." Jonathan stepped into the room. "I owe you an apology. More than an apology. I owe you my son's life." "You don't owe me anything." "I owe you everything." Jonathan's voice broke. "I owe you for seeing what I was too blind to see. For risking everything when I gave you every reason not to. For being brave enough to fight for my son when I'd already given up on him." Tears burned Naomi's eyes. "I just did what anyone would." "No." Jonathan shook his head. "That's the thing. Anyone wouldn't. Everyone else, the nurses, the staff, the other doctors, they all saw what was happening and said nothing. Did nothing. Because it wasn't their job. It wasn't their problem." He stepped closer. "But you made it your problem. You made him your problem. A little boy you barely knew, in a house where people treated you like you were invisible." "I know what it's like to be invisible," Naomi said quietly. "I know you do." Jonathan's eyes were wet. "And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I treated you that way. I'm sorry I didn't listen. I'm sorry I almost." His voice broke completely. "I almost let them kill him," he whispered. "My own son. Because I was so desperate to believe that money could fix anything. That expensive doctors meant better doctors. That people in white coats couldn't possibly be lying to me." He sank into the chair by the door, his head in his hands. "I hired you to clean my floors," he said. "And God used you to save my son's soul. And mine." Naomi didn't know what to say to that. So she said nothing. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Jonathan looked up. "He's asking for you," he said. "Evan. He wants to see the lady who helped him." Naomi's heart stuttered. "He remembers everything. He's been talking non-stop since he woke up fully. About the maid who held his hand when he was scared. Who looked at him like he mattered. Who saved him when everyone else had given up." Jonathan stood. "Will you come see him? Before you go?" Naomi should have said no. Should have made a clean break. But she couldn't. "Okay," she whispered. Evan's hospital room was different now. Flowers everywhere. Get well cards. Balloons. The machines were still there, but quieter. Less urgent. And in the bed, sitting up, looking thin but alive, was Evan. His face lit up when Naomi walked in. "You came," he said, his voice still raspy but strong. "Of course I came," Naomi said, moving to his bedside. Evan reached for her hand. She took it. "Thank you," he whispered. "For being brave. For helping me even when nobody wanted you to." Naomi's vision blurred. "You don't have to thank me, baby." "Yes, I do." Evan squeezed her hand. "You're a hero." "I'm not." "You are." The voice came from the doorway. Detective Chen stood there, his expression serious. "Ms. Turner, we need to talk. We just got word. Dr. Thorne has been spotted. Crossing the border into Canada. We've got units moving to intercept, but—" He hesitated. "But what?" Jonathan demanded. Chen's face was grim. "But he's not alone. He's got someone with him. Someone from the hospital. And they're carrying files. Patient records. Names." Naomi's blood turned to ice. "They're going to warn the others," she breathed. The other doctors in the network. They're going to disappear before we can stop them. We need you to testify, Chen said. All of you. Tomorrow. Grand jury. It's the only way we can move fast enough to get arrest warrants before they scatter. Jonathan looked at Evan. At his son, who'd just started recovering. Who'd just started feeling safe again. We'll be there, he said. Chen nodded and left. But as he did, Naomi's phone buzzed one last time. The unknown number. You stopped Thorn. You saved Evan. But the network is bigger than you know. And now they know your name. Watch your back, Naomi Turner. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Naomi stared at the message. Then looked at Evan, who was smiling at her with complete trust. At Jonathan, who was waiting for her to tell him everything would be okay. And Naomi realized something. She'd thought this story ended with saving one boy. But it didn't end. It never ended. Because there were more Evan Hales out there. More children being poisoned for profit. More families being destroyed by people they trusted. And now everyone knew her name. The maid who'd taken down a conspiracy. The woman who'd made herself visible. The target. She looked down at her phone one more time. And then, instead of running, she made a choice. She hit reply. Who are you? And how do I stop them all? The response came instantly. Meet me tomorrow. After your testimony. Come alone. I'll tell you everything. And Naomi? Bring that documentation. You're going to need it. Because we're about to burn this whole system to the ground. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to turn on notifications, so you're notified every time I release a great story like this one. If Underdog stories like this one resonate with you, take a moment to check our channel. You'll find a full catalog of powerful Underdog stories. Stories of the overlooked, the silenced, and the underestimated who rise and triumph. Thank you for watching.